Dishonored 2 from Arkane. How is this thing?
Turns out it's pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. What surprised you? I feel like you knew a lot going into this thing. So what were the big takeaways?
You know, my big question going in was, is it going to make sense that you have to play the game twice to experience Corvo and Emily? You know?
You have to?
Yeah. Well, you don't have to, but if you want to use both characters' powers, you know, like they've basically split the power down 50-50.
Okay.
So if you want to use Emily's powers and Corvo's, you're going to have to play through it twice.
Yeesh.
So I was like, you know, I would prefer a game that maybe you vacillate between the two and, you know, you get to experience all of it at once. But the more I played with it, you know, as you go into a deeper and deeper mission and you're upgrading the powers of Emily, I would probably be really annoyed if you took away the Domino Power and threw me into Corvo's shoes.
Right.
So,
It'd be like, you know, Arkham City, you were switching between Catwoman and Batman. It's
Yeah.
like, just let me stick with one and get used to one moveset. So,
yeah, so
it's a good
I
choice?
think it worked. Yeah, I think it worked for me.
And is Corvo's moveset basically the same from the first game? Like, is it just like
There's
different versions of it?
most of the basics, but you know, like all the powers this time, you know, in the first game there was only one upgrade for each power kind of.
Mm-hmm.
This one has permutations like a branching tree, so you can
Interesting.
upgrade them in different ways. And in classic Arkane fashion, you can't get them all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to pick and choose what you're going to use for this playthrough.
Okay.
Does it at least make sense where you can like pick one character? Well, like one character makes more sense to go stealthy, and the other character maybe tends to be more violent or.
You know, that actually doesn't factor in this time. I felt really comfortable using most of the powers for both characters in either a violent way or a non-violent way. I really like it, you know, like the Domino Power, which I think is the standout one, where you upgrade it, you know, you can just string like 4 people's fates together and just knock them out with a sleeping dart or choke one out or make them all explode, you know,
and
like you have a lot of
ripples
options.
through absolutely
Yeah, and
everybody.
it affects every single person. So it works both ways. And that was one of the criticisms of that first game. If you remember, like the stealth tree seemed a little simplistic. You're like, I have these powers, but that's kind of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot more diversity this time with like a doppelganger character that you can kind of place around the environment. And one really savvy person figured out that you can throw a doppelganger down a long fall
Okay.
and land on her and stealth kill her, and you don't take any damage from the fall.
That's
That's it was Tom Francis from PC Gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's tweeting about it. So you've been playing this game, JV.
Yeah, I've almost beaten it. Actually, funny story, like I was playing it as like Murderous Emily,
Sure.
and because it had been a bad week and I just wanted to like slash everyone to pieces. And so I
Cool.
did that for a bit, and then I got
Therapy.
yeah, 3/4 of the way through, I was like, you know, I feel kind of bad about this. Like a lot of these people, a lot of these guards, I'm just chopping to bits. They're just doing their job, and I'm just really pissed. So I restarted it, and I'm about halfway through the game again, non-lethal as Emily.
Just because you want that low chaos ending, is that still a thing this time
I mean,
around?
yeah, it's still a thing, but not even that. It just felt like I just felt guilt, like actual guilt. Like it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing because I know later I'm just going to go back through and like play the murderous route, probably as Corvo. But
Sure.
like, you know, I wanted this Emily to be a different person.
I'm curious what it's like, JV, to go from a string of shooters, Titanfall 2's campaign, which is great, but as you described it, it's very stupid.
Oh, it's gloriously stupid.
To go from a very stupid game to this game, is that like Murderous Path, your first time through the natural transition, then you realize, okay, time to get sophisticated, time to go slow?
Not really, because it's still like, I mean, it wasn't like that hard of a jump, but they obviously play much more differently. Like Dishonored's, even if you're like doing like action stuff, it's still tactical in a way. Like you have to plan out like enemy, you know, engagements, especially when you're surrounded. Like you can't just go do the Errol Flynn thing and like try and take on 3 enemies at once with like a sword. Like you have to have like, you need to be stringing together like crossbow attacks or like grenades or, you know, sliding into them. My favorite thing to do in Dishonored 2 is to like slide into enemies and stab them or punch them.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good. Like that's probably my favorite, even more than Domino, just because like I'm such a big fan of like sliding in first person games.
Sliding.
Like, yeah, I mean,
thing.
yeah.
All right, I can dig it.
Yeah.
I saw somebody on Twitter, nebulous somebody, just say, "Hey, it's more Dishonored. If you like Dishonored 1, you'll like it." Is that fair to say? Does it just feel like an extension of that?
It's refined, and you have a vast new array of toys to play with too.
Yeah.
You know, but the game's at its best when it gets out of its comfort zone and like breaks away from like just infiltrate this building that's a basic building and figure out how to take all these people down and get to your objective. There's a couple missions that they really do some clever mission design, where like you're in the Clockwork Mansion, which has moving floors that you need to parse together how to get to the bone charms and the runes. And, the exploration is really interesting. And you can pull off some amazing like hit and fade tactics in that space.
Huh.
And then there's another one, Stilton Manor, later on in the game where you have that timepiece they showed at E3.
So cool.
And
Yeah.
that thing's amazing. It's the year of the timepiece. Yeah.
It's
Titanfall
really
had one as
bizarre.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that Clockwork Mansion. I don't like it as much as I like Effect and Cause, which is the timepiece mission from Titanfall 2. But I do love that level, especially like Bertz was saying, like you can do sort of like hit and fade stuff. Like my favorite thing, and the best part about the level is you figure things out by accident, like figuring out what you can do.
What do you mean by that?
Like there are Clockwork Soldiers that are sort of storming around. They're the monsters that we saw in the E3 or the E3 trailer.
They can see out of their front and back, so
Yeah.
they're more difficult than your standard grunt.
Right.
So a guard shot at me. There are also humans patrolling the mansion. A guard shot at me, missed, took off the head of the Clockwork Soldier. And what happens is they go berserk and they attack anyone because they lose their sensor. And it just slaughtered the room full of guards.
Oh,
It's
wow.
great. And
Like
then
Helen Keller back in the day.
and then there's another. Well, as part of the Clockwork Mansion, you're hitting levers and stuff, and like rooms are changing shapes. And there was a guard standing on like one of the platforms, and I hit the switch, and it raised him up, and he just stood there and got crushed by the roof as he was raising. It was like just great stuff. It's fantastic.
And it doesn't feel janky. It felt natural.
No, it felt natural. Like, it wasn't like he was just standing there motionless. Like the little notification thing came up over his head. Like, oh, there's something going on here. Oh, too late. My head's been crushed in.
The new environment, Karnaca,
Mm-hmm.
they call it. How is it?
I like it. Dunwall's so cold and industrial. It
Ratty.
reminds you a lot of London.
Yeah.
It's not so ratty this time.
Oh.
Like
More mosquito-y.
yeah, Emily cleaned it up. Karnaka's got the the analog to the rats with the blood flies, which like these things basically bury their eggs in the corpses of humans that are just like in apartments, whether they were murdered or committed suicide or whatever. And so like there's these nests that you have to deal with or sneak past.
Yeah.
Or you
I
can
found
just
them-
throw a body on them and like they'll attack the body for like an entire minute while you sneak past.
And you can also take control of them, right? Can you? Like
I
rats?
I haven't done possession yet, but I
Okay.
think you can with Corvo.
Yeah.
Okay,
Corvo has that.
gotcha.
Yeah, I haven't unlocked the possession skill tree yet.
Right,
So-
right. There's
But they-
really that many powers where there's plenty of stuff that you just don't get to?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man.
And there's a really cool min-max kind of thing that you can do with bone charms. So bone charms, you can actually craft them this time. It takes a bunch of runes to unlock the high level stuff, but you can stack 4 effects on top of one another,
Mhm.
and you run a risk of corrupting the rune. But a lot of times, if you're say playing stealth, it might be a penalty that doesn't affect you. It might affect an action player.
What type of things are these?
So,
Yeah,
like-
bone. Oh, go ahead.
So there's like a one that speeds up how you can move stealth wise. So when you're crouched, it speeds you up, and when you stack 4 on it, you move really fast, almost as fast as walking.
Yeah.
So you could do stuff like that, or there's one I believe it's called Lucky or something, Lucky Dart, where you can get a chance to recover your sleep dart if you shoot it into a guy. So you don't have to worry about running out of resources when you're in a mission. If you stack that bone charm 4 times, chances are you're getting one back.
Yeah.
So you can really tailor your play experience with the bone charms. And I really didn't realize that until I was pretty late in the game for
Yeah.
the first playthrough. So I'm definitely experimenting with that.
So
this
that
time.
and Domino are 2 things you suggest, like if you're a new player going in, like
Yeah,
go for those
Domino's
2
so
things?
fun.
It is. That's my favorite power. Like the ones I'm using the most with Emily when I was doing the aggressive playthrough, she has one called Shadow Walker, which again we saw in the E3 trailer where she turns into that giant sort of mist monster
Right.
from Lost and can just like rip men in half. And so you'll come into an area that has like 4 or 5 soldiers in the middle of a street, and you can domino 3 of them and take out one of them. And you'll see, you'll rip him in half, rip off his head, and then the other 2 soldiers that you dominoed, their heads will just go spinning, like right off of their necks, like just into space.
Into
Jesus.
space.
Yeah, it's just like it'll go flying, and it's just hilarious and gruesome to witness, and really cool.
And then you feel guilty about your life.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's perfect.
that's how my mind works.
Do you feel like they add a lot to the lore by bringing it to this new world? Is there a lot more to digest?
The environmental storytelling is great in this game. You can navigate through all these apartments and, like back corners of the city or mansions or conservatories and learn a lot more about the world. The general story is actually the surprising thing that I felt was a little weak.
Oh,
Not
okay.
because of the story they're telling, but because of the execution of the story.
Even the beginning, I just played through the
Super
beginning of this
rushed.
game. It
Super
feels
rushed.
just kind of emotionally dead, just a weird pace to everything. It
And-
didn't hit.
Yeah, it's weird because the first Dishonored was super lean. Like it was sort of a cliche revenge story, but the writing was lean. You know, you didn't have villains going on super long monologues about stuff, and then this one opens up with like a revenge play monologue from Delilah that just goes on forever, and she reveals her whole master plan, and it's just like, come on, just let me get on with this.
And everybody in the court is like, yeah, that seems
yeah,
reasonable.
we don't need to do a paternity test.
There's
It's
no
cool.
proof. Yeah, but yeah.
Where's Mari? You know,
Her
yeah.
character design bugged me too. I don't know if it was the voice actress too. It just seemed a little too over the top. And
She's a
didn't
little
quite
over the
fit.
top. Emily, I feel, is a little wooden.
Yeah.
You know, her acting.
I don't mind
She's
Emily.
trying to be subtle. There's a lot of subtlety to what she's talking about, and she actually grows a lot as a character as you play through the game. She realizes maybe her deficiencies as a ruler. So I really like that element of the story. But sometimes the actress just comes off like she's just rushing through a line
Is it just
with a monotone voice.
Is it just kind of having too much narrative ambition for a systems-driven game? Is that the core issue here? Is it an ambition problem or
No,
just
I
simple,
think it's
simple
just
execution?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really don't think there's a problem with what they're trying to do with the voiceovers. You know, it worked really great with Dowd in the DLC for the first game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
a
how
good
much
point.
are the characters talking then?
A good bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Emily talks, she's kind of a chatterbox.
They use it as a bark to kind of, divert your attention a little bit, to focus on something they want you to focus on narratively.
Right.
So there is purpose beyond just telling the story too sometimes.
How's Corvo then? Because it
Corvo's
took me
awesome.
a
I
bit
like him.
to get used to his voice. Him just having a voice, even it's like that's not the voice I imagined he would have.
Yeah,
How did
I
you
played
imagine it would
Thief,
go,
though,
Rubes?
so-
Oh, hello.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Corvo.
just like that. That's
Yeah.
Corvo.
But he's the same voice actor from Thief. So if you're a
Yeah.
Thief fan, it's just like,
I
isn't
loved
it
it.
It's a nice
jarring and
callback.
confusing?
I don't think. I mean, this is what we have now. You know, Thief was kind of a disappointment when it came out. What, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
Now,
That thief.
that game was pretty average.
Yeah, let's not talk about
You know,
that game.
rushed. You know,
Javy, you're big on dismissing games that were solid. Like, Reeves, you like that
No.
game.
We gave it an 8. I think
I like
gave
some
it an 8.
concepts in the game, but the world was just barren.
Yeah. JV, you seem a little bit Trump-esque. Everything's either amazing or garbage. Is
No,
that
I'm
fair?
not trumpet. That's
wow.
hurtful. That's
But you're
hurtful.
big. Like,
Make games great again.
we're talking about Watch Dogs coming up soon, and you seem to be on the
No. I'm really after Elise like showed me the new one yesterday. Oh,
But my angle is on Watch Dogs 1, your angle seems to be very much, that game's garbage, nothing redeeming about it. Where it's like, there are some decent ideas in that thing.
no, I don't think there's nothing redeeming about it. I think like there are so many elements that overshadow those redeeming bits that it's not worth playing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Namely, Aiden.
Yeah, Aiden, the overall story. But yeah, no, it feels like from what I saw yesterday, the sequel has like fixed a lot of those problems and seems really goofy and funny. And
We'll
I
learn
can't
more
wait to
about
play
that
it.
in a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So how does Dishonored 2 compare to Dishonored 1 then?
I like it better. I think
Wow.
the story is enamoring because that was the first game is really tough to beat because it's the first time in a world like that, and
Yeah.
so the story doesn't do it for me. But I like the diversity of the powers in this game. I am looking forward to playing through it a couple times, which I usually don't do with games, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a fire and forget kind of guy when it comes to campaigns.
I honestly don't know yet. I have to actually finish it.
Mhm.
But I'm really enjoying it so far. My only big like mark against it is I just do not like Karnaka at all.
Oh, interesting.
But that's just because I don't like real like tropical settings or anything like that. Like I'm just much more into Dunwall, and when the game opens up and I saw Dunwall and it was nice and clean, I was like, it's like coming home again. I like this. I want to stay here for a bit. And it's like, nope, off we go.
It represents your inner soul a little bit better than a
Yeah,
tropical
yeah,
paradise.
yeah.
You fear change.
You'll
Is
go
that it?
back.
I do fear change.
You'll go back.
I don't understand. What's wrong with Karnaka?
I mean, it's just a preference thing. Like, there's nothing like necessarily wrong with it. It's just I don't like that kind of setting.
It's not level design. It's I don't like looking at palm trees.
You don't
Pretty
like
much,
the
yeah.
Mediterranean
No.
vibe or what?
Yeah, it's just that. It's just not my thing. Like, it's not bad. It's just not for me.
I would live there if I had to choose between those two locations.
I would live in Dunwall.
I'd go live on that dinosaur continent in the
Oh, yeah.
Dishonored
I
world.
forgot about that.
What is
Mysterious,
that called?
confusing land.
Pangea?
It's something like
that?
Panacea. Yeah, some nonsense like that.
Oh yeah. Also, the Outsider sucks. Like,
Oh,
the-
really?
The redesign for the Outsider, I do not care for it at all.
I know they changed the actor.
Really similar.
No, but it's like like they've made him look like the mall kid from like 2005 who hangs outside of Hot Topic and buys like My Chemical Romance stuff.
Well, he kind of always
Alright.
looked like that.
No, he didn't. He looked much more Victorian in the first one, I'd say.
I remember We're being pretty emo.
No, but
whatnot.
like not to this level.
I mean, if that dude was in like Bright Eyes or something, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense.
But it's also the voice actor. He's like Penguin from Gotham.
Right,
It's
right.
just, it doesn't work for me.
Do they add a lot to it? I remember that was one of the big takeaways from the first one was like, God, Outsider is a really cool concept. There's a lot of mystery there. Is this like filling in a lot of those holes with Outsider?
I mean,
you learn a little bit about his origin story, how he ended up in the Void, and you
Okay.
spend a little more time in the Void,
which is much cooler this time.
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
it's a little more like Scarecrow missions and Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that sounds like the highlight.
Well, there aren't
Wow.
the puzzle elements that you get to do with the.
It's more of an aesthetic thing.
Yeah, it's
like
an aesthetic.
similarities.
It was interesting because we talked to Harvey Smith. We did the Dishonored cover story like earlier in the year, and he was talking about the Outsider and how when they did the Outsider in the first game, people kind of got this impression that he was like this super sinister character,
trickster
with,
god.
yeah,
Yeah,
trickster
like
god.
Loki,
And
basically.
they kind of like did that wasn't their intention, and so they wanted to add more character to him. But it sounds like you don't like the
No,
character
because I always like
added to him.
No, I actually really like the Loki angle. Like, I just like that kind of character. So that might also be just a thing with me. But it's also the voice is bad. Like, it is just a bad voice performance.
Do you think it's too much reaching for celebrity talent? Because what this game has, Rosario
Yeah, it's got
Dawson,
Rosario Dawson. It's got Vincent
D'Onofrio.
Yeah,
Sam Rockwell's in the game for all of maybe 2 minutes.
There's
he
some
good?
Really?
He's okay.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not like, oh wow, Rockwell's here. You know, he's
It's
doesn't have a lot of lines.
because they did the same thing with Carrie Fisher in
Yeah.
the first one. Like, she comes on a PA system for like 2 seconds, and then they had Susan Sarandon as
Yes,
Granny
Granny
Rags.
Rags, yeah.
It's really distracting when they do that in games, especially with like Rosario Dawson. Her voice is just so her, and
Yeah.
so every time I see Megan on that boat, I just keep picturing Rosario Dawson,
Yep.
like in the booth in front of a microphone. It's hard for me not to like.
You watch too many
associate that
Vidocs
voice.
on their
Yeah, I don't know.
YouTube channel. That's your big
That's
mistake.
right.
What'd
Yeah.
you end up giving this game, Bertz?
I give it a 9.25.
Wow. Any other takeaways we haven't covered yet?
Let's see. You know, I think we touched on the vast majority of them. For Dishonored fans, it's setting up the DLC nicely, I think.
That sounds like a bad thing.
No,
That sounds like cliffhanger.
no, it's not a cliffhanger. It's
Okay.
more like a tease. I guess I would say tease.
And it seems like a bold direction for DLC.
Not bold, but one that I think will be comforting to people who are fans of Dishonored.
Okay.
Yeah, like honestly, if they deliver like another DLC or a set of DLCs that are as good as Knife of Dunwall and what was it, The Witches of Briggamore?
Witches or something, yeah.
Yeah, like that'll be good. I will buy that like day one.
Because they really got experimental in those DLCs for Dishonored 1.
I mean, yeah, they gave you more abilities to work with, and the story was actually pretty good. But yeah, and it was a good meaty chunk too. Like, it wasn't like, well, here's 30 minutes of gameplay. It's 6
was-
hours together.
If you add them up together, it's like a full game.
Yeah, it's
Like,
pretty
those
much.
It really
DLCs.
is.
Yeah, so I'm full on for DLC. I want more.
Just
Good
no
Lord.
trials.
Yeah. No, God, no.
I know people like trials. Actually, this game is going to be good for speedrunning, I think.
Oh,
With the min-maxing you can do with the bone charms, you can figure out some really crazy, aggressive
I just can't.
lines to run.
I just can't wait for the combo videos, like the one from the
know.
original Dishonored, where they're taking out that mansion, and he does it in like 30 seconds by just stringing together mines, blink, and spring razors, blink, and like an occasional backstab, killing literally everyone in the mansion. That's like 15 people. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I want to see what they do with like Domino and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can click right here if you want to subscribe and listen to the audio version of the full show. Full episodes air every Thursday, and they feature Game Informer editors sitting around talking about the biggest reviews, previews. We talk about exclusive impressions of Game Informer's cover stories. We have long-form developer interviews, everything that's great in gaming. So every Thursday, be sure to check it out.